Hello everyone, and welcome to the Spotlight. This is the part of the show where Amanda comes out and talks about whatever little thing she happens to be obsessing about at the moment. This is something I've kind of been wanting to do for a while, just because there are things that I really like to talk about that don't necessarily have to do with books or writing, but have to do with television shows, or songs, or events, or something like that. This is going to be a monthly video that's just me talking about basically anything I want to talk about, or whatever I happen to be obsessing over at that moment. And as my sister pointed out, you're always obsessing over something, so I'm never gonna run out of ideas. At the moment, I happen to be obsessing over the BBC television show Ashes to Ashes. If you've never heard of this show, I'm not actually surprised. The only place I have been able to find it to watch is on Hulu+. The entire series is there. You cannot find it on DVD for the region here in the US. It is only available on the United Kingdom's region, which I think is just a cardinal sin because it is a great show. My first thought when I finished this show was, I really want to buy the DVDs. But thank your lucky stars, because when I first heard about this show and tried to find it, it wasn't even on Hulu+. It was nowhere. It is the sequel to the BBC television show Life on Mars. Not to be confused with the American remake version of Life on Mars that aired on ABC. The basic premise of Life on Mars is that the main character, modern-day Detective Chief Inspector Sam Tyler, is involved in an accident and wakes up in the year 1973. In addition to solving crimes and working with his now archaic police team, he's trying to figure out how to get back to the year 2007. With Ashes to Ashes, it's a similar premise. The main character, Detective Inspector Alex Drake, is shot and wakes up in 1981 in the exact same world, surrounded by the exact same characters that Sam found himself surrounded by. I always felt that it really did make the story its own. It wasn't just a reproduction or a copycat of Life on Mars with a new main character. I really did feel that it was a new story. Because of this, I feel it is much better described as a sequel and not a spin-off, because it carries on a lot of the storylines and a lot of the unanswered questions we had left from Life on Mars. Now, it's very important to note that Life on Mars was a sufficient standalone series. It had a satisfactory ending, even with some of the unanswered questions. But it is also necessary to watch if you are interested in watching Ashes to Ashes, because Ashes to Ashes deals with a lot of stuff from Life on Mars, especially with the main character of Sam Tyler. So it's very important to watch Life on Mars if you want to watch Ashes to Ashes. First off, the very concept of this show is mind-blowing. It's very clever. I haven't seen anything like it before. It's a great police procedural drama, but it's also much more than that. Not only have you got the whole jumped back in time thing, but they make a great point of demonstrating the dramatic, stark contrast between modern-day policing and policing in the early 80s or early 70s, depending on which show you're watching. If you like a great crime show, this is a great one to get into for that aspect alone. But then there's so much more. This is for people who like great storylines and great character development. The idea of this show is so brilliant, I'm actually having trouble putting it into words. One of the greatest storytelling achievements of Ashes to Ashes is that it never gets too sidetracked by any one storyline. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on at once. You've got the character development, the character interaction, and all of this stuff. But then you have the overall series storyline. Each season has its own clearly defined story arc. And in addition, every episode acts like a regular cop show story plot with the crime and catching the bad guy, and it all drives the entire thing forward. The writing is tight, and it doesn't rest for a minute between story progression and character development. It's a great combination and execution of all of these elements of storytelling, and really it just boggled my mind as a storyteller and a writer myself. It was just a great achievement, I think. This is a big reason I think Ashes to Ashes was even better than Life on Mars. I loved Life on Mars. It was a great story. It was a great concept. But for Ashes and Ashes, I felt that the storytelling and the writing really did kick it up a few notches. It was much tighter, much faster, and with much more interconnected storylines. Part of this could be that Life on Mars was 16 episodes, but it took me like a year to watch the whole series, and I watched the 24 episodes of Ashes to Ashes in a week. So part of this could just be how fast I watched Ashes to Ashes. It was just one episode after another. Boom, 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 boom. Partly because it was that good, and partly because I only had one free week trial subscription for Hulu Plus, which is the only place that you can find to watch Ashes to Ashes, which is really sad. Another reason is I felt that the character of Alex Drake becomes much more personally involved with all of the characters than Sam Tyler did for most of Life on Mars, and that just put a whole new perspective on it. It made the characters much more important, and that was part of what made the story so powerful. Ashes to Ashes also made an effort to concentrate on the minor characters and their development, something that I wish Life on Mars had done a lot more, especially with Ray and Chris. And this show really did accomplish that. There were some episodes that really focused in on one of the minor characters, but even in the episodes where they didn't have some kind of prominent storyline, they were always developing a little, and I really enjoyed seeing that. The best part, by far, is the interaction, the tension, and the development of the characters of Alex Drake and Gene Hunt. And I think a lot of that had to do with the insane chemistry between the characters. I knew going into the show that they were going to play up the romantic tension between the two lead characters, and that was part of what really intrigued me about this story, because watching Life on Mars, the character of Gene Hunt is not who you would automatically assume to be the obvious male lead in a romantic tension plot. And I was very intrigued to see how they did that, and they did it really, really well, and I thought it was awesome. In storytelling, there's romantic tension, and then there's sexual tension, and I don't have much patience for the latter because the former is much more character-driven, and it's much more interesting in my opinion. Their chemistry is a brilliant combination of both, but it also feels very genuine. Their chemistry sizzles in every scene, but they're also conflicting personalities, and they clash a lot. It isn't just some annoying bickering, but it's a very realistic clash of opposing personalities and emotions. The saying is iron sharpens iron, and that's a great way to describe these characters. They constantly push each other, sometimes for good and sometimes for bad, and that's part of what made this show really interesting and really intriguing to me. How they wrote it, how they executed it, but also how the actors portrayed it. The acting was great. I heard there was some ridicule originally for the actress who stepped into the main role, Keely Hawes, but I thought she did a really good job. I think Philip Glenister was really the heart and soul of this show, and he's a really good actor. Somebody said he was a force of nature, and I would have to agree with that. This was one of those incredible kinds of performances that makes me want to watch everything he has ever made. In Life on Mars, you had, I think, two really brilliant actors, was John Sim and Philip Glenister. And in Ashes to Ashes, Philip Glenister just takes over, because he is the most mind-boggling character. He is very interesting, he's kind of dark, and he just has all sorts of issues and things, and he's always beating people up. He's like an enigma, but also you've got Dean Andrews and Marshall Lancaster and Montserrat Lombard. But I thought they were all really great actors. And then in the third season, you had Daniel Mays, who played a wonderful, brilliant antagonist. Daniel Mays can somehow pull off this thing where he is sly, friendly, and creepy all at the same time, and he does it really, really well. So the actors were great, the storyline was incredible, the writing was really good, and basically all in all, this was just an epic television show. If you're looking for something new to watch, I would definitely recommend Life on Mars and Ashes to Ashes. It blew my mind how brilliant it was all written and executed and well done. I had to watch the final episode twice just to make sure that I didn't miss anything, because I had to wrap my head around it. It was like that mind-blowing. It's a short story, which is in some ways kind of sad, because when you're in a good story, you never ever want it to end, but in another way, it also doesn't leave you hanging for answers for ages and ages and ages. So it was 3 seasons long, which was 24 episodes. So it's really not that much, but they cram so much into those 24 episodes. Now, before you go out and start one of these shows, I do want to caution you, because especially for my regular viewers, because you know that I have very conservative views. I have very clearly defined opinions about what I like to see in books and in shows and movies, and Ashes to Ashes and Life on Mars does rest kind of on the other side of that fence. There is a lot of content. There's a lot of stuff that I would normally have issue with, and, well, I did have issue with it in this show, but I felt that the storytelling and the characters and the whole plot and the idea, it was just so compelling that I did let some things slide. I would consider the show for very mature audiences. It's in the high end of the PG-13 rating. It can be very crude. It has a lot of language because of, I guess, some less restrictive censorship in British television. It also contains some nudity, which doesn't come up very frequently, but there are some episodes where it does contain that. So, not appropriate for all audiences. I'm just going to warn you because I am very big on pointing that out in a lot of my videos. But like I said, there was just such brilliant storytelling and brilliant acting that I had to let it slide, because this is just, I don't know, I feel like these two shows, Life on Mars and Ashes to Ashes, but Ashes to Ashes especially, they were like a gem of the television show heaven. I don't know. They are really, really good. They are going to stay with me for a very long time. It took me days to get over the finale of Ashes to Ashes just because there was so much. It was mind-boggling. I was not ready for the show to end. I swear I was not ready for the show to end. That is the main reason why I had to rewatch the finale again, because I wasn't ready for it to be over. I had a couple of issues with the way the show ended, but watching the episode again kind of took that away. So my main point in doing the spotlight is just to draw your attention to this great show, because it has some really wonderful storytelling and some brilliant acting, and I think it deserves a lot more attention than I think it has gotten. I get the feeling that, especially in the US, it's really underrated just because it's so hard to find, and I really don't like seeing really good quality shows and stories going underrated when they deserve so much more attention. On my list of best all-time shows, this would probably be in the top 5, and in the best of all-time concepts, probably in the top 3, just because it was that good. Also, if you do decide that you want to watch these shows, you have to check out the BBC YouTube channel, because apparently they did some awesome promos, at the very least for Ashes to Ashes. I don't know if they did it for Life on Mars, but they did some awesome episode promos for Ashes to Ashes. I've only seen one, but it is the cast recreating the music video of Billy Joel's Uptown Girl, and it's completely brilliant. So you really have to watch the promos, I think, if you're going to watch Ashes to Ashes. You have to. And I'm through gushing now, so bye-bye.